Let's look at another state, Texas, that has some legislation that, among other things, would limit voting hours, restrict the number of voting machines at countywide polling places, ban election officials from sending out unsolicited mail ballots applications to voters, and provide more access to poll watchers at election sites. Eric Holder had this to say to the Dallas Morning News. He said Republicans are waging a multi-pronged war on democracy through bills at state legislatures that would make voting harder, including that slew of bills in Texas. What the hell does that have to do with election integrity? Holder told the Dallas Morning News. They've come up with diabolical ways in which they're trying to cripple people from getting to the polls and get there in a really easy way. Claire, it's hard to separate this from what we've been talking about earlier in this hour, which is that if the polls suggest that fewer people identify as Republicans, if more people in your party believe things that are provably untrue, this is your path to maybe holding on to some houses in the Congress, maybe holding on to state legislatures and governorships.
Yeah, I just don't think this is a good strategy, though. I mean, let's back this truck up and take a look at what they're actually doing. What they're saying to everyone is, we don't want you to vote because if you vote, we're not going to win. So, I mean, guess what that makes everybody want to do? It makes everybody want to vote. If you are denied a right that is fundamentally American, if they are making it hard, and they have made very clear that's their message here. And by the way, this has been going on for a while. This didn't start with Trump. They've been trying to limit access to the polls for a long time. I mean, we shouldn't have elections on Tuesdays. We should have open elections for more than 1 or 2 days. We should make this easy. Everybody should automatically be registered. But instead, the Republicans are afraid of voters. They're scared of voters. They don't want voters. That is not a long-term winning strategy for a political party. I think in the long run, they're going to encourage more people to vote, and they're going to vote against them.
It is something. I mean, it's such a good point, Claire. I mean, Charlie, we saw that. We saw people lining up in the middle of a pandemic. And in the early days of the pandemic, when there was a lot more fear and a lot less known, we saw them waiting for hours and hours and hours to vote, in spite of the fact that they were told many times in many ways, we don't want you to do that.
Yeah, it is not a good look for a political party. Look, I think the key question is, why is this happening? Why are these states doing this? What is the problem that they're trying to solve? And the answer is, it is because of the big lie that we heard from Donald Trump, who tried to overturn the election. I will tell you what disturbs me the most. I do think that there are things you can do to mitigate some of these restrictions on voting. I think that there will be a backlash against that. But what worries me the most is the question of how willing are Republican and Republican legislators to try to overturn the results of an election. We saw this attempt in 2020. We know what Donald Trump tried to do. He tried to get legislatures to come in and overturn the election. He tried to get election officials to find the ballots. What if there are more Trumpy election officials the next time around? Was the big lie in the attempt to steal the election by Donald Trump a rehearsal for what they want to do in the future? And that's no longer feels extreme to say that, especially when you look at some of the details of the election laws, which give partisan legislatures much more power and authority than they had in the past. So I guess I'm much more concerned about this because we saw the willingness of Donald Trump and his supporters and the Republican Party to go along with the nullification of an election, not just making it harder to vote, not just saying that we're afraid of voters, but that we are prepared to actually throw out the popular vote in a number of major states. That's what worries me.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.